Good afternoon, everybody. I believe it's almost 2 o'clock, so I'll get started. My name is Jane Lacey, and I used to be the Senior Capture Business Development Manager here at Amazon Web Services. I recently moved over into managing our U.S. Emerging Partner team. It was a really good transition. A lot of our contracts that we utilize today are held by our partner community. So now I am helping them to grow even further. So welcome. I know it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon on day 2, so I really appreciate that you're still here. And we'll definitely have time for questions. And today I'm talking about getting started with cloud-ready contracts. We'll let them finish.
Or down here to the breakout and enjoy the rest of the session. But we need you to leave the exhibit hall. The exhibit hall is now closed.
Okay, thank you. I came on board about 4.5 years ago on Teresa Carlson's Worldwide Public Sector team, and I was tasked with get some contracts in place. As you know, at Amazon Web Services, we have one mission, and that's infrastructure as a service. And of course, we as a company don't necessarily call ourselves that, but the industry definitely calls us that, right? And in order to put a contract in place, we really did have to make it as simplistic as that, even though I'm sure you are all savvy users and understand that our portfolio of offerings goes clear up the stack into managed offerings like Workspaces and Redshift and Aurora and the like, many others. So with that, a quick show of hands, how many are already utilizing a cloud-ready procurement to buy AWS? Wow, okay. Well then, I was concerned that I might be a little repetitive here. We've had a couple of sessions on acquisition and procurement. These are the good folks that are already using AWS, whether they're coming directly to us in contracting or working through one of our partners as well. And this is, we have a contracts page on the AWS website. If you just absolutely Google AWS Public Sector Contracts page, you'll get to it and see the plethora of contracts that are available to you. In addition to coming direct to AWS, all these folks have either taken advantage of the direct contracting path or through one of our partner contracts. So I wanted to, before I get to the what are all the contracts available part, I wanted to level set. So for those of you who already know and understand this, please be patient. We will get to that ultimate list of contracts. It's really important. What I learned over the 4.5 years here is not everybody's definition is the same for cloud, right? And as I indicated, many people in industry consider what Amazon Web Services provides as infrastructure as a service. We also have platform as a service and software as a service because of our innovation and moving up the stack. But when it comes to terms and conditions and a cloud-friendly procurement, they see us as infrastructure as a service. And why is that? Because of shared responsibility model. You, the customer, still have that control, hypervisor and above, to choose your region, to choose how you encrypt, to choose how you want to secure it. AWS, on our part of the shared security model, keeps the infrastructure layer secure, takes care of the patch applications and things like that. But from a contracting perspective, the contract terms look like infrastructure terms. When you get into software as a service, there are generally more customized SLAs, more customized managed service type language. There's generally statement of works involved. So it's a different looking contract, but know that Amazon Web Services does offer things that equate to those definitions. So why do you even want to move to the cloud anyway? You've got all this great on-premise architecture out there, the box, and then you've got this cloud thing. Well, do you want to continue investing in that capital expenditure of hundreds of thousands of dollars and maybe not even utilizing all of it, or it took you 9 to 12 months to even obtain because you had to go get the budget to secure it with a PO, you still have to have a contract in place, or come over to the cloud when it's refresh time. Or you need additional bandwidth. You need that elastic ability to scale your service. And then there's hybrid, a little of both, right? Many of our customers are in the hybrid mode. But the bottom line of this session is, how do you buy it? We've been doing this on-premise thing now for what, 40, 50 years in government and public sector, and AWS Cloud, not so much, about 5 years, but we're getting there. So to break these down a little bit, I'll let you guys read, and I'll go through these quickly because I think if you've attended the sessions between yesterday and today, hopefully that the mission has been said. But building a cloud-centric procurement, purposely different from an existing procurement. Why? For what I've already said. It's not existing hardware, obviously. For all intensive purposes, you're leasing our hardware, but you're only paying for what you're using. You're not stuck in a traditional lease of $300 a month per server. You're only using for an hour. You only pay for an hour, okay? That's a huge advantage. And so that cloud procurement has to reflect that. It can't reflect, I need 3 terabyte drives on this type of server. Making it not prescriptive in the procurement is what gets to the innovation of a cloud-centric procurement. Involving key stakeholders. Many times I've gone into a customer and it will be someone from IT. And they know, they've been out there, they've dabbled on AWS, they love the technology, they want to do business, and we try to work through an agreement, or we try to help shape what a procurement would like so that they can buy. They've not involved their CISO or their CIO to gain that business champion. Those conversations, although the technology conversation goes very well, when you get to the procurement and the legal conversation, that's when you have this giant breakdown, okay? Because again, the procurement looks differently. So I would encourage you that if you're a future customer, current customer having challenges, get that key stakeholder within your business, the person that can make those decisions, that can be the innovative thinker to make that disruptive change in your procurement, because unfortunately it is a disruptive change, right? You know, they finally got those processes down really well in procurement, and who wants to go change in those, right? They can just pull that procurement out of the drawer and go get 500 new servers. Well, you know, different way of thinking. So asking the right questions. Some folks, also a misnomer. I've got 5 servers over here in my on-prem data center. Don't I just need 5 servers in your cloud then? Not necessarily. Maybe, not necessarily. We think to optimize those servers, right? In your on-prem servers, you're probably looking at 20, 30% usage. And they're there. They're paid for. They're being managed by the database administrator. Who cares if they're only being used 20% of the time, right? Well, in the cloud, you can get a server for 20% of the time and only pay for 20% of the time. So again, the procurement needs to reflect that. Third-party analyst reports. Go to them, show these to your business decision makers, your procurement folks, so that they believe what you're telling them. That's the hardest thing. I get my lawyers, your lawyers, and they're there to protect each of us, right? They know what's good for their own business. And you get folks like Gartner to say, hey, these guys are okay. We've done some work and done some analysis. They're okay. I think you can do business with them. It goes a long way. So it's just another tool in your tool belt when you've got to go get your champion on your side to make this happen in your business. Another key element, kind of a lessons learned that I've had in these 5 years of getting these contracts in place. At first, you know, 5 years ago, we certainly didn't call it infrastructure as a service. It was cloud computing, cloud storage, right? And many partners are managed service providers, many are SaaS providers, technology companies, and the customers out there were rolling it all into one procurement. Just give it to me all, just like they were used to buying their servers and storage for their data centers on-prem. And we finally got together as an industry and took a look at the NIST cloud definitions of infrastructure, PaaS, SaaS, and managed services, and said, you know what? I think the way we can accomplish this is creating the swim lanes and separating it out. So for those of you who you may need managed services, but you have enough in-house technical capability that you want to be able to buy the AWS on its own and then have a managed service provider work with it. This morning I was on a panel with NASA, and they do that very procurement. They procure AWS through a reseller, and then they have a managed service contract to do the managed pieces that they themselves are not able to do. So that way you're not crossing over in those terms and conditions that get really kludgy, and the customer's getting what they need, and the technology's there. The cloud ecosystem. I've been talking about partners. Our advanced partner network is out there. This is just a sampling of partners that are there. We also have an AWS marketplace where many, many SaaS offerings are available by the minute, by the hour, by the day, I don't know, probably by the month, I don't know. It varies. Over 2,600 products, folks. And although for public sector, again, you still have to have some procurement in there, but as I told the folks this morning in my first panel, most of you have discretionary buying, or you can buy up to a certain amount on your P card or procurement card and expense it back. You can actually buy quite a bit of Amazon on a P card. $2,500 will get you a sandbox. It'll get you dipping your toe in the water to buy AWS without having to worry about what did those terms look like until I can physically see and touch Amazon Web Services to know how it works, so that when my attorney or my business champion comes back to me and says, why does that term, why can't we have Amazon encrypt our data? Well, because I want to, Mr. Customer, I want to have the flexibility to determine what needs to be encrypted and what doesn't. Well, why doesn't Amazon keep our data in the US? You may need or want the ability to choose a region outside the US or to keep it in the US. We offer all sorts of tools to help you, the customer, make those decisions and to make it easy for you by providing the best practices. But that's part of the innovation, right? So we got to get terms that match the innovation. That's the key. Shared responsibility, like I talked about. The Amazon layer that we take care of, this is you, the shared responsibility, right? We offer pages and pages and pages of security best practices. Security is absolutely our number one goal for you customers. This is all we do. We don't have any other diversification in our business. We would go out of business if there was a problem with security, and we wouldn't be in business then, period. Amazon.com is a customer of ours. I'm sure everyone in this room has used them once or twice. It's very important to us. Security is number one. But we both share the responsibility. And again, the terms of a procurement reflect that. Compliance. This is right up there with the number one security piece, right? Especially for you folks in this room. We have to comply with certain government and industry standards like ISO 2700, like FedRAMP for the federal customers, HIPAA in the healthcare world, FERPA in the education world. We have identified as many as we possibly know of today, and you, our customer, if you know of another that we have not yet addressed, please bring it to our attention. We'll do a full due diligence on it to determine if we in our layer need to put controls in place, or you, the customer, need to put controls in place to comply. Utility pricing model. This catches a lot of folks, right? Many of our government customers are very much used to a fixed price contract, and it can only spend X amount of dollars over the term of the contract. Now, when we lower prices by 51 times since 2006, how are you going to take advantage of that if you have a fixed price contract? How are you going to take advantage of the innovation? I know some contracts that I've dealt with, they want me to advise them every time I make a change to a SKU. Well, in our world, that happens almost every day. We are innovating new features literally on a daily basis. And I tell these procurement folks, we would be very busy. It would be you and me talking all day long, right? Well, that's okay. We'll make a change to the contract. Okay, that's 300,000 pages worth of contract changes because of innovation. You, our customer, need and want this innovation in technology to grow your business, to take advantage of the scale, the breadth of the offering, because at the end of the day, we as taxpayers are all benefiting from all of that innovation, right? So utility pricing, pay for what you use. In some cases, folks have been able to take advantage of going from CapEx to OpEx. I really think that is still a conversation being had with your business champions. I don't think it's something as cut and dried as just change from a CapEx to an OpEx, but it's certainly part of the conversation when you go to pay as you go, pay only for what you use, put it in your OpEx budget versus your CapEx budget. And it's conversations we can help you have with your business champion. Tech refresh, like I said, hybrid model. Some folks are absolutely keeping their on-prem data centers and just flexing to the cloud, right? Data disaster recovery, and event monitoring. You know, we have a lot of voter registration type customers, and on come voting day, they burst to the cloud, and they don't have, you know, outages. Things like that. We have a couple of transportation entities running on AWS, same thing. They run their bursting on cloud. They run their traditional mainstay, you know, selling 5 tickets an hour on their on-prem, but as soon as the rush hour hits, it bursts to the cloud. It's seamless to you, the customer, when you're buying those tickets to ride the transportation. The chart showing the innovation. When I started back in 2011, 82 launches that year, and we thought that was awesome. Last year, 722. That's 2 a day, right? If I do the math right? 2 a day. And that's not including the incredible announcements like Snowball last year at reInvent, and Kinesis and Aurora, and all the great offerings that we've put out there. I would be remiss without talking about cloud governance. That is absolutely key. What is cloud governance? When we came up with this term, I asked my colleagues, what do you mean by cloud governance? Because it's still part of that shared responsibility model. We talked about security. Cloud governance is that piece where you open the account, you have root credentials, or even if you don't have root credentials, you have identity and access management to the account. It's your responsibility to secure that account. You secure those keys. You choose to encrypt or not encrypt the data. You also choose how to secure the account. Maybe you're the database administrator and you want this user group over here to only have access to Kinesis. That's all they're working on. That's all they need access to. You can lock that account down so they only have that access. And vice versa. You don't want your folks putting data outside the US? Build a CloudFormation template that prohibits your users to go choose a region from outside the US. These represent the tools, just some of the tools that we offer on the Amazon console to help you in your cloud governance. We've also, because we've been asked by so many customers about this, we actually now have one-day workshops that just focus on cloud governance and helping our customers to put together their own policies and procedures to get to the best possible security and governance within their organization. And of course, that's always evolving, right? As your business grows and evolves, your cloud governance will evolve. Then there's good old regulations. Amazon Web Services has been recognized as a commercial item. That is really important in the federal world, and we're working with state and local government and education for it to have as much meaning in that space as well. What that essentially means to be deemed a commercial item is that it's an off-the-shelf, readily available piece of something that you, the user, the government, can buy. It's not customized. What we offer in our services is available to every customer across the globe. We have over 1 million active customers in AWS today. Each and every one of them have access to the same services as every one of you in the room, okay? We do not customize the service for anyone. What we sell is out there, so it can be defined as a commercial item. So according to the regulations, that helps with terms and conditions when it comes to federal contracting because there are FAR clauses that address commercial item contracting. And then the terms and conditions. On our website, we have the AWS Customer Agreement. You can actually go out there, find it, take a look at it. I think it's about 13 pages or so. It's pretty easy to read. Of course, it's a very broad-reaching contract path because it's, again, available for everyone who goes out and clicks I agree. Those are the terms that you're agreeing to. Now, as we know in our wonderful government space, most of us can't just click through and buy, right? So we can amend that click-through to mutually agree to terms that you can agree to as a government entity or other public sector customer. So if you're wanting to buy and you know you can't click through or you know that click-through terms are going to be an issue, pull that down. Show it to your business champion. Show it to your procurement folks. Step through it. We ask that you come back to us with, this doesn't make sense. Data center tours and audits. We need to be able to touch and feel these servers. We need to make sure that they're real, right? Well, let's talk about that, right? If we let everybody in the door to one of our data centers, that's a security issue, right? I think you as a customer wouldn't want the guy next to you coming in and touching and feeling around on the servers, right? So we don't allow it, period. That way, that's just another component of how we can physically secure our data centers. Our contracting is not fixed as far as a timeline. You can come and go as a customer. We do not, force you to set an end date. We don't force you to call us up and tell us that you're ending your agreement. You engage with AWS, you contract with AWS, you agree to the terms of use, you spin up a server, you put storage into S3 buckets, and then you decide you don't want to use it anymore. You simply get your data, take it home, and you pay for what you use, and you're done. That's it. Really fantastic. It doesn't make sense in our traditional world, I know. It's kind of hard to get over, but really great for innovation again. So a list of terms and conditions. But know that we realize that states have 50 different sets of laws, governing law, things like that. Reach out to your account manager. We can get those things taken care of. We realize you have to comply with law, we have to comply with law. So that's my point, okay? Here's a menu of what we have today. And I'm not sure, did they announce anything at the keynotes of any new services? Usually at our reInvent developers conference in December is when they announce all the biggies. When I started, it was literally a few of these things. And here we are almost 5 years later with this incredible landscape of cloud offerings. When this comes to contracting, the point of this being, if I had entered into an agreement with an agency and said, these were the only things available at the time, and you're going to have to let me know, right? You wouldn't be able, contractually, to buy those things. Well, in this shared responsibility model, once you have access to the AWS console, you have access to everything we offer. So again, that's challenging on our side of the fence because we don't want to prevent you from innovating. So again, contractually, we want to ensure that whatever the offering is what the offering is you have access to. So the terms need to reflect the ability to remain flexible in allowing for the constant innovation and change in the service offerings of the contract. And that's a hard one for procurement folks to get over too, because they want to know exactly what's on there. Which leads me to the single line item. We did a contract with the state of Texas back in 2012. They were the first state to really adopt cloud. And I had managed the original hardware contract with Texas in my former position at another company, where I managed hundreds of thousands of SKUs, right? And when a PO was placed, you had to, detail out by SKU what you were going to buy on that purchase order. Well, we have accommodated the GSA schedule with SKUs. We have given every one of our services a SKU. That spreadsheet is available, and it is available online. If anybody wants to know where that is, I can make you aware of where that is. The upside, though, is you don't want to be putting AWS SKUs on your POs. You want single line item. You want cloud services, cloud support, cloud training, maybe professional services. We have a professional services team, albeit small, but we do offer that. And then, of course, if you're utilizing a partner. We have we have SKUs per region. So we have 12 regions now. The SKUs could differ by region because not all regions have the exact offering, right? Because we go by what the customer is asking for in the regions. So it would be a nightmare to have those. But again, traditional procurement calls for SKU-based. So that's another conversation that we really need to get tight with your procurement folks, so they have an understanding of what it means to manage hundreds of thousands of SKUs versus I want to buy $10,000 worth of cloud services on this PO. That's what you got to get to in your procurement. Next steps, committing to a cloud-first strategy. And the federal government really did an awesome job with this several years ago. They put out the cloud-first strategy. And like anything in our wonderful government, it takes time to evolve and to fully absorb and understand what that means. Does it mean that everybody has to buy cloud? Absolutely not, right? But it means, hey, instead of spending the $500 million on a technical refresh, let's think about what could we be doing in cloud, or part of that spend in cloud, so that we're not spending all that money just with IT infrastructure. We could be using that money elsewhere for child services or some other program that government services offer. Many states are now adopting cloud-first policies, and it's the same challenge there, right? They have to absorb and understand it before it happens. When I'm speaking to my partner community, one of my questions is, do you lead with cloud? Or is it simply what the customer asks and then you have the conversation with them? Because I think if you let the customer dictate, what does that customer know? They know how to buy hardware. And it's comfortable to them. We all like comfortable things, right? We know how to do it, we've been doing it, we've been successful at it. But they'll never get over the hump into the new technology if you don't insist that they have that cloud conversation. Again, it may end up being a hybrid solution. It may end up being an all-in cloud solution. But we need to get our customers and our partners to have that tough first conversation. Then it goes well, because there's so many wonderful things that are going on in it. Do a pilot, right? Like I said this morning, do a proof of concept. Dip your toe in the water. If you're not already utilizing AWS in some capacity, somehow, some way, see if your procurement will allow you to click through, open an account, go through one of our quick labs or test drives that are all available on the website, 10-minute, hop on, hop off, see what it's like. So that then when you go talk to your business champion, those procurement folks, you can actually explain to them why encryption is not a part of the terms and conditions, why choosing a region is up to you versus Amazon. Let's see. All right, the good stuff. So like I said, at Amazon, aws.amazon.com at the Contract Center, this is just a screenshot. I wasn't able to go back and forth and toggle. This is the page that we host where our government authorized resellers have been awarded through competitive bids, which you can check off the procurement box that way, right? When it's competitively bid, publicly awarded contracts. And we've broken it up into U.S. federal government contracts, and state and local is further down in that page. And this lists off the ones that are known to us, where we've actually been assisting those partners in maybe putting together a content to help them to go and win those contracts. Again, I'll stress that you're welcome to come directly to AWS and buy, right? But these are truly cloud-friendly contract vehicles listed out there. Here's just another snapshot. I apologize if it's not very readable. GSA Schedule 70, NASA SOUP, and then over here a snapshot of the state and local ones. GSA Schedule 70, as most of you probably are aware, we offer letters of supply. Amazon does not carry its own Schedule 70, but we have, I believe, 9 partners now who we've offered letters of supply to. They have the entire Amazon offering on those contract schedules, including GovCloud region offerings. NASA SOUP, we have really been pleased with the amount of awarded partners on those. Under the state and local, we've got the state of Texas, the Department of Information Resources contract. We actually were awarded that directly as well as indirectly through our partners. We also have U.S. communities through our partners. And then the NASPO WSCA contract, which is the Western States Contracting Alliance cooperative contract, where states can buy. This is just a snapshot of what's out there. Please just Google AWS public sector contracts and you'll see the list. Those contracts, they may not represent everything that I've talked about here today, but they represent enough to get you to AWS, okay? Contracting is going to continue to evolve, but I truly believe after 5 years, we truly have a baseline of cloud-ready, cloud-friendly contracts to choose from and to go seek and see what they look like. Maybe you are doing a particular opportunity where you're going to have to go out to bid. You're unable to use any one of these cloud-ready contracts already. Please come to us if you're needing help with your procurement to help shape what that procurement may look like. Or you can go out to, I've included hyperlinks on every one of those contracts, most of which are online. You can download the State of Texas DIR contract today, look at all the terms and conditions that were negotiated, as well as how they evaluated, what the scope of work on the contract is, how they incorporated the share responsibility model, how they included utility pricing, most of these actually have an end date. So I'll tell you, we do that in these instances because of RFPs. But most of the tenets that I've talked about today are included in here in some form or fashion, okay? And then just some tidbits, snippets of the contracts. GSA Schedule 70 really is the most baseline of the federal contracting paths, right? You can onesie, twosie buy, right? It is the end-all, be-all of buying many things, including cloud. They actually have changed the cloud SIN. It went from 52 to 40. And many of our partners are working towards making that change to the different SIN. This is the current list of partners and government authorized resellers that have those letters of supply. The other schedule is SOUP 5. Again, it's a GWAC. The scope, GSA, you can buy pencils, pens, tires, oil, I don't know, all sorts of things off of GSA. The SOUP contract is specific to IT. It's a very flexible contract. And these are our partners that hold the SOUP 5 contract today. The NASPO WSCA ValuePoint contract that I referred to, again, it's a license to hunt, an IDIQ. Public cooperative contract, states like to utilize it. Oh, and one point on the GSA, states can utilize the GSA. Cities and counties can use the GSA as well. There are some other federal contracts that they've publicly stated that states can piggyback off of. I haven't seen a lot of activity in that way. GSA they have been actively using. Some cities have chosen to use, New York has used it, Philadelphia has used GSA. So that's being utilized in that way. That was the scope. That contract just went out for bid again, and they modified the scope to be more cloud friendly. They took all the lessons learned in the 3 years that contract was out and put it into the revised bid that just happened a couple of months ago. The state of Texas really was my go-to contract for the state and local market and education. They really saw the cloud coming and took advantage of being a first adopter. They actually did a pilot on with several cloud vendors to see how it worked. Just like I indicated, do a proof of concept, check it out, go play with it, right? Open up an account. That is exactly what the state of Texas did. They did that for 9 months, did a pilot, and then they started putting the procurement together. They actually put together an RFI, or a request for information, so the vendor community was able to respond and give guidance. Then they went so far as putting out a draft RFP. I highly suggest that if you're going to put out, if your agency has to put out a procurement vehicle, ask them to do a draft. Send the draft to your vendor community and let them comment on that draft. You'd be surprised. I really think you'll get good feedback on that draft that will ultimately help all parties to contract at the end of the day. All right, that was a real quick down and dirty. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, but if you would please go to the mic, I would happily take any questions. Please line up, it's all good.
Thanks for the good information.
Sure.
I work for the federal government, and we're working on procurement project to obtain infrastructure as a service.
Yes.
And we are utilizing GSA Schedule 70.
Okay.
However, on our PPA or statement of work, we are forced to list out every single items that we need to purchase.
Okay.
Just like machine types,
right.
You know, whether it's going to be on-demand, spot pricing, or reserve. I looked at one of the contractor that was listed that you showed earlier on GSA 70. They don't seem to have the SKU number that you mentioned earlier, which is a single item for the cloud services. They have one line for every single machine, for every region. So their pricing sheet is 1,000 pages.
Correct.
So that is the challenge that we're experiencing with. I mean, do you have other solutions for something like that? Because
other contracts. Yeah. GSA is the one contract that forces us to do the SKUs. And I actually know one of the letter of supply partners is in the room here, 4 Points. And I would encourage you to talk to them. But GSA is the one contract holder that forces the SKU list. And is GSA your only route to market and you want to go big, or are you just starting to use AWS?
Well, we want to go big.
Okay.
My procurement, contract officer says we need to go to GSA.
For every line item. Wow.
So,
I totally understand your challenge.
And obviously you guys don't sell direct, and that
right.
obviously doesn't help also.
Exactly. When you go through GSA, they're going to force you to do that. But why don't we talk afterwards?
Okay.
And let's come up with a method to get through that.
One more question.
Sure.
Is it generally acceptable to have some sort of clause for transition in and out? For example, government can never own the cloud service provider, right? You're buying the account through the reseller. Is generally an acceptable practice when you're shifting from one reseller to another reseller? Can the Amazon accommodate just transfer the ownership of the account, or do we have to rebuild the whole cloud environment?
You do not have to rebuild the whole. What we do is a 3-way assignment letter, And it's really simply just that, a letter acknowledging that you've used reseller A and you now want to contract under reseller B. Amazon will draft the letter that here's A, they own the account, and now it's going to be moved to B. And you, the customer, agree that the terms are now going to be governed by reseller B. And then it's just a matter of changing the information in the profile. Your account remains completely intact, your data remains completely intact, just how you had it. It becomes an administrative change after the three-way assignment letter is completed.
So who do I contact to get that done?
I'll put you in touch. The guy's right in the room, I'll hook you up.
Well, I can relate to that. I also work for the government, and once in a while, because of competitive reasons, we have to switch around, but it's a challenge. Anyway, couple questions. One kind of on the back end. You know, we set aside a certain amount of money for services, and we go out to our directorates or whoever and get our funding. And we usually have a lot of different funding lines for a single thing.
Right.
And then in this environment, it looks like we're going to have to come up with a bill-back strategy too, to make sure that we track, you know,
Right.
how much usage each directorate is using. But I was thinking there does come times when we run out of funding.
Right.
Let's say we're 9 months into that year and we didn't predict very well. What happens in a scenario like that? Or in another scenario, we get sequestration and we don't
Right.
get any funding for a while. How do you guys deal with that sort of a thing?
Those are awesome, very relevant questions. And that's where obviously the governance comes in. And we have never turned off an account. That is the absolute last thing we ever want to do for those very reasons, right? When sequestration happened, we understand that, right? And of course, we're going to work with you, the customer, to ensure that nothing goes on with your account, right? There are always extenuating circumstances. And you continue to maintain and own that data. Please don't get me wrong. And let's just say, let's take an example of the bill didn't get paid for whatever reason, right?
Yes,
Then that worst case scenario would be suspension. And what happens when we suspend is we literally block your access to the account. The services are still running exactly as you have asked those services to run, but we say, hey, we need your attention. Please give us a ring. You know, you're 120 days past due or something like that. But even moreover than that, your account manager has going to have been flagged at the 30-day mark or 60-day mark, whatever the terms we've worked through, and they're going to be starting to make those phone calls. But no, again, worst case scenario, we couldn't reach you, you've no longer worked for the company or customer that the account is with. After those phone calls have been made, no response, we're going to put a hold on the account saying, hey, somebody please give us a call. Services are still running, and we're going to make every attempt to get a hold of you to find out what's going on, and we'll make arrangements accordingly. The last thing we want to do is turn off those accounts, because we know there could be, who knows, it could be the cake recipes, it could be the family photos, or it could be the production load running healthcare.gov, you know, and we don't want to shut that down.
Sure. So how do you know, someone talked about color of money earlier, like research and development, where do you draw the line in all your offerings between what would be considered research and development, what would be operations and maintenance, what would be sustainment? I mean, I guess you learn intuitively after you've done it for a while, but do you have some guidance or insight there for me at all?
As far as, because we don't know what the workloads are, because we don't see the data, we don't touch the data. So you, the customer, if it requires something unusual, out of the norm, you're going to have to make us aware so that we can help.
Yeah, because our back-end contracts, you know, they have so many CLINs and SLINs, and each one has the color money associated to it, as
Yep.
well as a lifespan of the money.
Yep.
You know, and what can be carried forward, or what has to be returned to the government if we don't spend it. Like, you save us way so much money.
It's a terrible thing, isn't
We have
it?
to figure out how to return it back to Congress. You know?
Exactly. Well, I think this morning we talked about tagging the accounts. And that's, again, something that you do, the customer. So tag the accounts so that you can keep track of the color of the money that's going into this bucket or that bucket. It's a little bit more challenging if you're doing a multi-tenant environment where you have multiple processes running in the same account, obviously. But if you separate those out by account, then you can tag those accounts, do chargebacks, billbacks. This is a grant money over here. This is federal funding that runs out next month over here. And then you can use those tools, the billing, monitoring, CloudWatch, those governance tools to help you then discern, I think, those different buckets. It's a good starting point anyway. And then all the third-party tools out there that get very sophisticated. I think you'd find some really awesome solutions with our third-party partners. Okay? Yes?
So I'm the one that asked the question about the color of money at the earlier session, and was wondering if anybody in the room has actually procured AWS and have had to make a determination from a funding perspective, whether or not you had to use procurement dollars based on a dollar amount of what you're procuring, because it was discussed earlier that NASA did a contract where they gave it a value, but they didn't actually fund the actual contract until they were using the actual AWS. But I'm curious that if the actual funding, let's say just for, a guess in the dark that it's $1 million value, is that procurement dollars or is that O&M? So I'm curious if anybody in the room has had that experience or know anything on the funding side of the house. So.
I think somebody in the back.
Okay. So you have your RDT&E funds, you have your O&M, you have your procurement. So one of the challenges that we're seeing, not even on cloud, and I'm assuming we're going to run into this problem with cloud, is that unless we buy it in small portions, which then now we could be accused of splitting requirements, is we have to figure out if anybody has gone through this process and actually either used O&M dollars for a large amount of cloud, or if they've been using procurement dollars. Because we use RDT&E currently right now for some of our development in cloud. But that's
Okay.
because it's development.
Right, R&D monies.
Because you're correct. It's up to
Right.
the agency to determine
Right.
what kind of money that they're using.
Right.
So
I'm sure now that when you put the R&D element into that, I'm sure many folks, this is my R&D bucket, researchers, I mean, big universities, right? They've got
Right.
their R&D bucket, they've got their operating bucket. I'm sure many of us have utilized those buckets. I think it's just nomenclature that's holding you up.
it may also be the general counsels within the
Yeah,
different agencies and how
exactly.
they view things. Because one lawyer may see it as procurement dollars, but
Right.
another lawyer might be, no, that's
Right.
O&M, et cetera.
And I think the root analysis is, and there will be procurement rules for each.
Right.
So the same tenets apply, I think is the bottom line. Whether it's R&D money, whatever the color money, the same tenets apply when you want to buy in the cloud.
And then regarding requirements for procuring cloud, I know that you have the GWACs, you have the IDIQs, but for those, for whatever reason, are going to be unable to leverage those contract vehicles, is there any suggestions that you would provide in doing brand name justifications in regards to if we know that we want to do AWS, have any of the other GWACs or IDIQs gone through that process of doing a B&J, G&J, they have different nomenclature for it? Or any suggestions on building that particular requirement? Because one of the challenges that we have, if you're wanting to go to a specific product within the government, you have to do a brand name justification. And that's another thing that has to go through general counsel in order to get signed off. So I'm curious if when these IDIQs and these GWACs went through their process, hopefully they did that. I don't know if it was open competition for all cloud service providers or if it was a brand name justification.
I do not know the answer to that question. Chris or Gerald, do you guys know the answer to that question?
It was open. It was full open.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome, thank you. Just a couple more, sorry.
Hi, thank you for the good information. I heard you speak earlier, but I just was wondering, I know you mentioned GSA, and I work for NIH, for NITAC, which
Yes.
is another GWAC. So a lot of I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention that that's just another procurement tool. It's another
Absolutely.
contract vehicle that can be used. 4 Points is on there, DLT is on there. I couldn't read all the partners
Right.
that you guys had, but a lot of them are also on that contract. So if you're looking for another procurement avenue, that's just I just
Awesome.
wanted to bring that to
Thank you.
attention.
Thank you very much. And I
It's
believe
called
that.
NITAC, and we have 3 GWACs.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think when you go out to the website, you'll see the NITAC listed. Yes.
Hi, thank you. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the resellers and how you work with them and if they do anything other than just provide the contract vehicle.
Sure, absolutely. In our partner ecosystem, so you can sign up to be a partner. When you sign up, you become a registered partner. Then we offer the different levels of partnership, and really you increase your level of partnership by the amount of training and certifications that you obtain and learn and grow your company. Obviously, how you've grown your own business on AWS. As you then grow and see that you're needing this reseller status because you're doing business with the government or what have you, then once you become a standard level partner, that's the minimum level before you can apply to become an AWS reseller. It is a program, so there are program terms and conditions. It's all online if you were to look up AWS reseller program. You then, go ahead, Chris, sure.
There's a 3 o'clock session
Oh.
on the Amazon Partner Network just right after.
Awesome. Yes, and at 4 o'clock too, in the same room. So, but essentially it's a program, and we take it one step further for our government authorized resellers. We ask them, we want to ensure that they know how to do business with the government. So it's an additional application piece. But essentially the folks that you see up there on the contracts page are all government authorized resellers. That means they're a standard level partner at minimum. They've gone through the commercial resale program, and they've applied and received their government authorized reseller. So I really appreciate it. I apologize we went over. I'll be up here if you have any other questions. My colleagues are in the room as well that can help answer questions too. Thank you so much.